Welcome to another episode of Inside the Gig, where I interview one of the many talented artists playing in Cave Creek, Arizona. Today, I'm really happy about having Glade Wilson, who is an amazing musician who you probably see in Cave Creek if you've ever been to Cave Creek. He's my guest today, and his band is playing at Janie's on it's Saturday night, right, Glade? Saturday night at 7:30 to 10:30. 7:30 to 10:30 Saturday night at Janie's, which is on my green screen behind me. Glade, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Kevin. How are you?
Well, anytime I can do an interview with a talented musician, I'm pretty excited. So today's a good day.
That's kind. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, if anybody's ever heard you play, they know what a talent you are. So I wanted to do this interview with you because you've got a new band project that I think has played a couple of times at Janie's already in the last 6 months or so. And you're coming up this Saturday. So tell us about this band. What's it called? How did you put it? Who's in the band? What you guys doing?
My current band project is called the Glade Wilson Band. I think I've been trying for 20 years to get a band called the Glade Wilson Band. I finally did it. But it's members from my previous bands. I'm playing with Corey Pleward. He's the drummer. He's really amazing. I brought in Rich Alfano to play bass. He's been playing bass in the Valley for years and years. And then one of my previous projects, Seldom Seen, we played at Janie's a few times, did real well. The guitar player in that band, DeWitt Beeler, is going to be our guitar player, and he's really great. And that's the band. It'll be a four-piece.
So what are you guys doing with this band? What can I expect to hear on Saturday night at Janie's?
So Julian's got a lot of bands that kind of play classic rock. You know, he's got Scandalous Hands, Scandalous Hands, they're the best band I've ever seen locally. They're so great. And then, of course, there's Audio Farm. That's Bill Dutcher's band. They're amazing. The T-Bones, obviously, they're amazing. The thing about it, though, is that they're kind of classic rock centric, and so it's basically there are a lot of bands that are classic rock centric. So we're trying to do more modern stuff, appeal to a kind of a broader audience. But so we're doing 80s and 90s stuff, but Janie's is a kind of a Cave Creek, kind of a standard Cave Creek aged crowd. So we're also adding some classic rock to kind of fill out the show. So it's kind of like just a pop show. I know all these songs, I've heard them, that kind of thing, but with our own little twist on it.
So let me for those that are not like audiophiles in the audience. Tell me sort of how you would define the difference between a classic rock band, like some songs that a classic rock band would play, versus something that you guys play that it may have, obviously has similar instrumentation, but it may come, I'm guessing, 20 years later, 2 decades later, and how does it sound a little different?
Good question. So basically, like classic rock, which I play lots of classic rock. I love it. It's you'll play some Eagles tunes. Like one of my best songs as far as audience engagement that I play is Hotel California. That's classic rock. There's no question. Creedence Clearwater Revival, Led Zeppelin. The kind of rock bands from the '70s, maybe even go stretching back to the '60s. But what my band tries to do, or I try to do with my band, is to take and we don't do this every song, we do a lot of songs, to take new wave stuff. So new wave was the early '80s synth pop stuff. Think I Ran by Flock of Seagulls and Erasure and Depeche Mode. Those bands were new wave bands, and take their songs and adapt them to a classic four-piece rock band. That's the kind of stuff that we do. So there will be covers like Erasure's A Little Respect that you won't hear anybody else do, and we do it in a way that you won't hear anyone else do. So that's kind of what, my whole goal with music in general, not just with band stuff, is just to kind of surprise the audience with stuff that's familiar, but kind of a way you can only hear from us, I would say.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've DJ'd a ton of weddings in the Valley. I mean, I'm not a full-time DJ, but I've learned over the last 15 plus years that people love to dance to songs from their high school prom, and so depending on the age of your audience, you kind of can play to that thing if you, as a band, if you want to. I kind of, I started later in life, and as far as a performer goes, and I sound a little country anyway, right? So I haven't tried to go back and pick up all the, the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s rock stuff that I hear a lot of bands playing. But that's kind of who I am. But I do know that crowds respond to songs, and you can kind of look at the crowd. And I'm not trying to diss any crowd, but you can look at the crowd and you can see the age of the crowd, and I can say they're going to love this song, or they're going to say, who did this song? I've never heard it before. Right.
Right, right. And there's some songs that are kind of timeless and genreless. As performers, we've come across songs that kind of work anywhere. Um, I guess, and that's sort of with my solo stuff. That's kind of what I try to do. Like I try to find those songs that people, have a strong emotional connection to. They're fun. They can sing along, or they remind them of a time in their life. That's my solo thing. I guess I'm doing that in the band too, but in the band, I feel like a little more expansive. Like I want to do things that are kind of different. Um, and I'm stuck with covers for the moment, but I assume that we're going to progress at some point into writing and recording and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I would tell any musician that wants to play on a regular basis, um, you either have to record your own stuff and be famous, and then people will come to hear you, or you got to play covers that people dance to at their high school prom. So it's kind of like,
Right. No,
you
there's some
look
truth
at
to
the age
that.
group you're catering to, right? And then so covers. I don't personally, I don't consider cover music a bad thing. Now, I am the guy who has said before, I've gone around town and videoed a bunch of bands, and I've heard, what is it? I've heard, I don't know if was Start Me Up played in three different venues in Cave Creek, all within an hour of each other by three different bands. I can't remember if that was the song, but it was one of those songs where it's like, okay, so maybe
Yeah,
too much is not a good thing. Maybe, but so, but I wanted to go back to, you were talking about the difference between your solo gigs and the music you play and your band gigs. Just as a performer, I've asked a couple of other musicians that kind of do this dual role of, front man in a band plus a bunch of solo gigs. How is it different for you personally when you're performing with your band versus when you're solo?
oh man, it's so different because I'm a loop augmented artist. I would call myself a live looper because I'm not. Basically, I use a looper and a percussion instrument, and I play all the parts live and I loop and stuff. Well, that's the thing I do the most. I don't know, I probably play 100 shows a year that way. And so over time, I've developed techniques and muscle memory and stuff. So playing, so it looks like I'm doing something fairly complicated, and I am, but it's something I'm suited for.
Right.
And I get this kind of big sound, and I really like it. But playing with the band is a whole different thing because, once you set a loop down, that's what it's going to do the rest of the song. For example, if you make a mistake in a loop, you make that mistake, 60 times. And so
Right.
with the band, which I love playing with the band, a lot of that responsibility is on other people. And it's this organic thing. Like if I start playing faster, they start playing faster, that kind of thing. But then I'm surrounded by just tremendous musicians, and they surprise me. Their tone is, kind of specialized for us. Corey Pleward, I'll give you his example. His drums are the best sounding drums I've ever heard. You just can't, he hits them and you go, that's the way drums should sound. Rich Alfano's got that bass tone. It's in your fingers. I would say mostly he's got that bass tone. And then DeWitt, drags in an absolute, time bomb of a Mesa Boogie amplifier. And it's not ear splitting loud. He's very volume conscious, but he just
Sure.
gets this great thick tone. I can't do that stuff solo, and I can't do it by myself. So, it kind of lives and breathes. So I'm kind of free mentally to focus on kind of the fun thing about music when I'm playing. Like I don't have so much responsibility. I strum my little chords, I sing my little songs, I wave my hands, yell at people, I tell jokes, like it's a whole other thing. So I really enjoy band work, and it can't be more different from solo work. The two things are just completely.
Do you find one is harder than the other?
This sounds weird, but especially after what I just said, but actually band gigs are way harder They're way harder than solo gigs, but part of it's just practice. Like I just do solo gigs all the time, so
Right.
setup is something I've done a million times. I know how to do. But the band gigs, it's a lot of equipment, obviously, to get up to the volume you need to be and all that stuff. But also, it's just, I don't want to run anybody else down. The Cave Creek music scene, as far as I'm concerned, is the greatest music scene on earth, and I love it. I love being part of it. I love going to watch other people play and saying, I'm part of this scene. This is so great. And I do that. I
Yep.
go see everybody, and I love it. But the thing is, I forgot what point I was going to make with that. I
Yeah,
forgot where I was going with that.
you said something about running people down.
Oh, so perfect. So I remember. So okay, so I'm talking only about me. I don't what everybody else does is great and I love it. But speaking only about me, it doesn't make sense to me to have a solo show and then hire band members and play that solo show with a band. That
Right.
doesn't make sense to me. So there's very little overlap. Like I choose songs specifically for the band, but then I have to go learn them and play
Yeah.
them and I have to let them breathe and I have to, give them
Sure.
some, uh, and I have to give the band members some space to, to adapt and whatever. So basically the show that we play on Saturday will be very different from the show that I play solo. And that's what's hard about it. I know the solo show, the band show is kind of new to me and I'm
Hmm.
trying some things so because it ends up being a lot more work. But it's also like I point out, it's fun. As a solo performer, there are these there are these sort of down tempo, everyone's sitting there drinking their wine or whatever. Gigs, but band gigs, people want to dance. They want
Right.
to, they want energy. They want you to feed them. And so I accept and love the challenge of getting on stage and really just giving them everything I got. Go home exhausted on Saturday night, then I know I did my job. That's very different from a solo show.
Yeah.
Very, very different.
So you talked a little bit about what we would hear on Saturday. And again, I'm plug your show Saturday night at Janie's. That's what's today, the 15th, so the 16th, 18th. Is that the 18th? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Saturday, the June 18th, 7:30 to 10:30 at Janie's. You guys should get there. Get there early. Get a seat. Get parking. All that kind of stuff. But the show that people are going to see on Saturday, you said, is going to be a lot different in what songs you play from your solo show. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you're probably picking songs that allow you to leverage other bandmates as opposed to I got to learn how to lay down this loop on my solo show kind of thing. So
Oh,
right. So give me a couple of examples of songs that you maybe were itching to do as a performer, but just chose not to solo. But now you have this great band, so it's like, hey, I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. You got a couple in your head that you can think of that one?
oh yeah, I could actually talk about that all day, but I'll narrow the field a little. So I'll give you an example. Growing up in the valley, so I'm from Mesa. So growing up in the valley, there's a band here. Everyone knows Roger Klein and the Peacemakers. His first band was called the Refreshments. Well, not his first band. His first band that got big. It's called the
Sure.
Refreshments, and I saw him play many, many times. They were fabulous, and Roger Klein still does a lot of those tunes, and it's great. But that band was just fabulous, and they play a song. It was their only national hit that came off one of their two national records at the time from Capitol Records, and that was Banditos. Everyone knows the song Banditos,
Right.
but it's what the Refreshments were. They were this kind of guitar riff driven rock, which is really hard to do solo. But Banditos is such a great song. It's kind of iconic in the Arizona scene. So now I got DeWitt with his big giant amp, and he's got all the licks, and we play that song. It's so much fun, and everybody, as soon as you start playing it, it's so ridiculous and so awesome. Like that song kind of has it all. So that's the kind of thing that I want to bring to the band that I frankly can't do solo. And we play we play songs by the Gin Blossoms and stuff for the same reason. That just solo it just doesn't work that well. And
Right.
the other one I tell you is, we want to appeal to a broad audience. That's kind of when you do cover bands. That's kind of the point of it. And so that song "Can't You See,"
Hmm.
Marshall Tucker, a band covered that. The Blackstone Cherries, the name of the band that covered that. Really, they down tuned the guitars and they really rocked it up. And they came up with this cool set of licks that kind of go through it. And I heard that song and I'm like, that's it. We got to do that. because there's no way I could do all that stuff live because the
Right.
heavy guitar rigs, you can't do those on acoustic guitar. So DeWitt's got that down, and we're gonna play that song, the Blackstone Cherry version of Can't You See? I mean, there's a lot of songs on the list like that. There's a couple of examples of songs that I just can't do live, and it wouldn't
And
matter anyway because if you have that band in there and you get the thick tones and everything, it's super inspiring. So much fun to play and sing.
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. I think you're the only performer I know playing that I know personally that covers Michael Jackson,
Yeah,
and
it's true.
you do a handful of those. Is your band going to do a Michael Jackson number for us?
We're not. That's kind of the, along those lines. So one of the things I like to do solo. I'm a fingerstyle player. Like I adopted more or less full-time fingerstyle about 3 years ago, and the reason I like fingerstyle playing is it lets you play a guitar as if it were a piano, so you can
Right.
get a lot of those things in there. So one of the songs I've worked the hardest on in my entire life is Human Nature, which actually, just being a music nerd, was actually written by Toto, and Michael Jackson recorded it. Toto's actually the backing band on that track.
Mm.
And it's one of my favorite songs ever, and everybody loves it. Well, I can't even start to tell you how many actual clock hours, but it numbers in the high tens, 30, 40, 50 actual clock hours working on that song because there's no, like, you can't go copy it from anybody. Nobody does
Right.
it, at least not the way I want it. So it's this thing I really worked hard to get, a fingerstyle arrangement for. And it just, because of that, I didn't need a band for it. It
Right.
isn't the kind of forward-looking stuff that I want to band. So it's one of the ones that I reserve for solo stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of songs that repeat, for the same reason. I mean, in other words, you're gonna watch me play that song, and I work, and I could be wrong, but my whole point was to do something with that song that no one else has done.
Right. Well, and you do that
And
really well in your solo show. So I
oh,
expect great things from this Glade Wilson band on Saturday. I'll ask you one more question.
yeah,
As a performer, the audience obviously, cues into what you're doing, and you try to respond to how the audience is feeling and whatever, right? So I get all that. That's all part of the performance. But what's a song that kind of regardless of the audience, what's a song that the Glade Wilson band just really loves playing? I mean, whether there was 1,000 people there or 5 people there, what's a song you guys love playing?
wow, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. Well, so you could almost throw out the window everything I just said because there's one song that I worked really hard to find a cool fingerstyle arrangement, and I heard the original. I go, that's basically the synth part, because I do new wave stuff, and I go, that's the synth part, and I go, this would be so cool in the band. It's the song "A Little Respect" by Erasure. It's give a little respect,
Yeah.
and the way we do that song is so cool, and I love playing with those guys, and I don't even look. I don't even look at the audience. If you don't like it, I'll tell you
That's
this
right.
is for me.
Well, yeah, we obviously, we play because we want to make the audience happy. We want to perform
Oh,
and make their nights. But there are songs that I think every performer does that it's like they do it for themselves. I mean, it's great if the audience loves it and all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of wanted to expose you to that a little bit, so just so
yeah.
the audience knows, they will probably go crazy when you guys play that song. But it's good to have songs in your
Well,
set that are just,
that's
I
the
love
flip
playing the
side of
song.
that. Yeah, and the flip side of that, if you're playing a song that you connect with, emotionally or on any level, it doesn't really matter, then you're going to kind of pour your heart into it, and people respond to that. Like they like to see people, you know, kind of pouring themselves out on stage emotionally. That's kind of why you go to live shows. I think if we were
Right.
all standing up reading off iPads and playing exactly what the arrangements are supposed to be, I don't think that's interesting. Like there's no point to having a live show if you're going to do that. So
Right.
I go up there and I think people like that song because it's a dance club tune for one thing, and for another, we just love it. So I just lay into it, and that's what's fun about it.
Sounds like a great show. I've looked at the weather forecast. I think Saturday is going to be a perfect night in Cave Creek. I'm not playing at Janie's
Lucky.
Saturday, which means the chance of rain means it's not going to rain at all. It only rains when I play at Janie's. So
I actually think the same thing's true for me, but I'm afraid to say it out loud. Yeah, it's true. No, well, I want to
Julian
say,
used to pick at me all the time. He's like, every time we book you, it rains, and which is almost true. Although I've seen Bill Dutcher get rained out a handful of times. So
yeah, Bill has the same curse you do. I'm surprised farmers haven't hired you guys to go play get the crops watered. Yeah.
go stand out in the field.
I want to say, Kevin Crosby, you with along with Cave Creek Music and all this stuff is so it's just indispensable for our music community. And I want to say in front of God and everybody, thank you so much for doing all that. It really makes a huge difference.
Well, I'm with you in that I think this is an amazing music community. I tell people all the time that, like, well, did you know last Friday night there were, during the season, it was like 23 places, 23 music acts in the town of Cave Creek. And they're like, what? And I'm like, even on a hot summer night like this Saturday, I bet there's going to be 12 or 13 music acts in Cave Creek. And a lot of those places you can walk from place to place. It's a great town for live music, and I don't think everybody knows about it yet. So I'm going to keep promoting everybody and tell everybody, put a $5 or $10 bill in your pocket so that you can get some cash in that tip jar for these bands and these performers. I think we've probably all seen enough movies to believe that the people in the band are making so much money, and we all know that that's just not true. So
No,
we love playing, but it would be hard to pay your bills as a solo or a band member playing just these gigs. So every little tip helps. A $5 bill or a $10 bill or a 20. And even if you don't have money, go tell the performers how much you loved a particular part of their set, and it'll make all that gear lugging in the sweaty Arizona summer worthwhile, right?
it never gets old. I love people come up and share, stories about specific songs. And when I played it, they remember this time. And I love that. Those are more valuable to me than money because that's, why we play music. That's why we bond with music. That's why music is. And I love being part of that in people's lives for sure.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. People connect to songs on an emotional level, so they love their high school prom music, right? And then, unless you're like me and you didn't have a date for high school prom, I'm kidding, I had a date. But anyway, if you want to relive those memories, and then if you can hear a band like the Glade Wilson band at Janie's on Saturday night, I'm going to play it one more time at 7:30. Play a song that you have great memories to, and then they do a fantastic job. Even though it's not going to be the recording, it's going to be the Glade Wilson version. It's going to be an amazing performance, and people are going to connect to that memory on another level. And I'm going to speak for every musician I've interviewed. That's why we do this. Is we love getting in front of people, and I know that's why Glade loves doing it.
There's no question. Yeah.
So Glade, you're going to have a great show Saturday night. You've got a couple of, I think you got at least one solo show. Are you playing Saturday morning? You're doing the Cup of Joe every Saturday morning at Janie's is what, 10 to 1? And then are you Sunday afternoon this week as well?
So Sunday afternoon this week, 3 to 6, also at Janie's, is Robert Hoke. Robert Hoke's actually a local boy, and it's his gig, and he's asked me to come join him. So we're going to play that as a duo. And the weather might be nice where it's outside, it should be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got you just pulling a trailer up to the Janie's parking lot and spending the weekend, or how do you manage that?
I need to get a cot. Yeah, I need to get a cot put out there. It was all coincidental. It just so happened he's all hit on this weekend.
Well, lots of good music, and I can attest you won't hear the same stuff over and over and over from Glade. His catalog is immense, and I'm looking forward to the band. I will try to get up there Saturday night and shoot a couple of videos, you guys. So I think it's going to be great.